destination. I'm sure a lot of us are thinking about the first time we ever cycled on our own and feeling the cool breeze on our face. Yes, the two-wheeled cycle is often the first vehicle a child has full control over. And this two-wheel cycle has something much more than a tool of commute. It is a tool for a social change. This takes me back to my own cycling journey. As a younger sibling, I always had a hand-me-down cycle, but I completely remember the first time a cycle that was all mine made its way in my life. It was a purple ladybird with basket and all the zing bang and looking very feminine. And I completely remember the freedom, the independence that I felt with something that was exclusively mine. And it became my Sarthi for all the adventures that followed. And over time, it became much more than just a tool of commute for me. During my school days, I used to have my swimming practices every morning. So I got up at 4:30 in the morning to be able to cycle 10 kilometers to my swimming lesson, to my swimming pool, to be there at 5:15 sharp. And then I did complete my swimming lessons, which is about swimming 5 kilometers, and then cycling back 10 kilometers to my house, then to start my school day by boarding my school bus. This 20 kilometers of cycling to the swimming pool and back ensured that I got awarded the best swimmer of the Gujarat state for 4 consecutive years. But this was just the beginning of my cycling journey. In 2012, I graduated from my school and joined a BCom college. And it was 7 kilometers away from my house. So I cycled 7 kilometers to the college, study, and then commuted back 7 kilometers to home. This extra 14 kilometers on a daily basis, along with my sports in the morning and the evening, which consisted of swimming, cycling, and running, gave me more endurance. And in 2013, my city of Ahmedabad was organizing a cycle race, a national level cycle race of 50 kilometers in which I wanted to participate. But I did not have a cycle that I could race on. So I asked around in my family and friend circle that if someone had a spare racing cycle that I could borrow. One of my brother's friends had a cycle that was lying in his basement and he had not touched for years. He asked that, "Come, have a look." I went. The cycle was in a very, very bad state. Rusty, dusty, broken tires, no brakes, and it was horrible. But, not deterred, I took it to the mechanic. And surprise, surprise, in just 1100 rupees, the cycle had a full makeover. New wheels, new brakes, great rubber on the handlebar, and it was all set to go. So I trained for the race. And on the race day, it was flagged off by the then Chief Minister of Gujarat State, Narendra Modi, and I went on to win the 50-kilometer race, winning a prize money of 1 lakh rupees. It was the biggest ROI I think I've ever had in such a short span of time. And this was the big bang start of my triathlon journey. Triathlon is a combination sport of swimming, cycling, and running, one after the other. In the Olympics, we do 1.5 kilometers of swimming, followed by 40 kilometers of cycling, and finishing with 10 kilometers of running, one after the other, without any breaks, without any changeovers. And that is what my sport is. And who would have imagined that a girl who started doing cycling races in 2013 would go on to become the best Indian triathlete at the Global Forum dominating the sport nationally for more than a decade and leading the triathlon debut at the Commonwealth Games. And with my city now, Ahmedabad, going to host the 2030 Commonwealth Games, I think I'm very elated. And if you were wondering, those college rides did pay, like cycling 7 kilometers and back. Yes, I qualified as a chartered accountant in 2017. So it did pay. But one thing that I took back and that remained with me was how my cycling journey started in 2013. And that made me realize that the cycle, which is not being used, is not a wasted cycle. It can be transformed and it can be a tool of opening doors of opportunities for a lot of people. And I always had the sense that I was privileged enough to get so many opportunities, unlike so many people in my country. And I always wanted to give back. So in 2023, when I got selected as the International Olympic Committees, who are the organizers of the Olympic Games, young leader, the only one from India, I knew this was the time. And I learned that the percentage of girls dropping out of school versus boys dropping out of school in rural India was nearly 20%. And I realized this is what we learned during our research is that every village has a primary school, which is 1st to 8th standard, and every cluster of 5 to 7 villages had a secondary school, which is 9th and 10th standard. What does this mean? That when a girl has to go to a primary school up till class 8, she has to go within her village, which means she is only walking few hundred meters to get to the school. But when she has to go to a high school, she has to go to another village, which can be 5 to 10 kilometers away. This distance, along with other social barriers, forces almost 60% of girls in rural India to drop out of education. And once I realized this problem, I looked back at my 2013 journey and realized that how can we solve a commute problem? It was simple. Ask for a cycle, train, and you might just win the race. And that is exactly what we did. In November 2023, along with some family and friends, we went door to door to ask people for cycles that they had outgrown of and were not using anymore. We took cycles, we got 22 such cycles by going to various apartment buildings, and then we got them repaired. And we went to the rural high school, which was the nearest to my house, and they helped us identify 22 such girls who could benefit from these cycles. And we conducted a 6-day training camp with them. First, we taught them how to cycle. Yes, all the 12 to 13 years of age. Some of these girls were touching a cycle and riding a bike for the very first time in their life. So we taught them how to cycle. Then we took them on the roads that lead to their villages respectively, so that they can gain the confidence of cycling on a public road, which you share with other vehicles, with dogs, cats, cows, and all the animals, and which also has potholes, speed bumpers, and can be kacha and pakka on the village roads. And also to make them realize their own power, that they can cycle 10 kilometers without needing a break, which can be a social stigma for many. And then we also made them independent by teaching them the basic of puncture repair, brake adjustment, seat height adjustment, and how to maintain the entire cycle by themselves without needing anyone's intervention. And finally, we gave them these cycles. And once we had a very good pilot, we went full-fledged. And this entire initiative was called Ek Beti, Ek Cycle. And now, we went full-fledged and started helping many more people. But in 2024, we realized our biggest bottleneck. Our biggest bottleneck was getting a constant inflow of cycles from donors. So then, we thought we had a lot of global mentors and guides to guide us through this bottleneck. And then we decided to go to the private schools in the city and nudge the students to donate the cycles that they had outgrown of and were not using anymore. And we also collaborated with apartment buildings and corporates to help us get more donation of cycles like these. Now, our standard operating procedure includes going to pitching in these private schools to corporates, to banks and apartment buildings, urging them to donate the cycles that they're not using anymore. Then we get it refurbished and repaired by our partner mechanics. And then we go to rural high schools who help us identify girls who will benefit from these cycles. Then we do a 3 to 5 day training camp with them in which we teach them how to cycle, we take them on public roads, and finally we teach them to be independent, and finally we give them these cycles so that they can travel to these schools and remain in education and finish their higher education. Cycle, being a property, has to have ownership transfer as well. So, when a donor approaches us, the donor has to transfer the property rights to the foundation that we run, and from the foundation we transfer it to the rural high school where these girls are going to study. The rural high school then loans these cycles to these girls until they remain in that school. This way, we have transferred the accountability of the cycle and the security of the cycles from the rural high school. And then we also promote the girls who are part of our camp to then become the mentors and guides in the next camp, so that over time this entire initiative, which has only started 2.5 years ago, can become self-sustainable without our intervention or minimal intervention from the foundation's end. And during all these camps, we've come across such beautiful stories from girls and the effect of daily cycling afterwards. I remember this particular girl. Her name was Priyanshi. She, from the very second day of the camp, started bringing a note written in English about her dreams and how she envisions that this very cycle that we are giving to her will help her ride towards those dreams. And very quickly, I realized that these girls were as intelligent, as smart as all of us. What they lacked was opportunity, and equal opportunities as everything. And one thing that stuck with me was that for most of us, traveling to different countries is no big deal. But for these girls, most of them had not even been to their best friend's village, which is the next village to where they were staying, about 3 to 5 kilometers. So when during our camps, we take them on all the different rides to the different villages that these girls come from, they get equally nervous and excited about it to go and visit their best friends abroad. And it's surprising that within few kilometers of range, such a vast difference in actual lives of people exists. And what we also realized, and this is the feedback from their teachers, the sports teachers especially, for the girls who were cycling every day to and fro their houses and to the school, told us that most of these schools in the rural part have Kho-Kho as their main sport. And the girls who were cycling every day now comprise, and the entire Kho-Kho team is made of those girls. So they have increased their stamina, their sports ability just by cycling maybe 10 to 20 kilometers every day. And the Catholic teachers told us that the girls who were shy and timid and used to never participate in the classes are now participating, and they have a voice and they're very confidently voicing their opinions in the classroom and participating actively. These were some things going inside the project, going into the project we never imagined would be the outcome. We just went there to help these girls to be able to commute. But these were wonderful findings that we have over the years realized and have got feedback for. Now, with just 2 wheels, we are addressing 9 of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, making cities more just and fair communities. And cycle, obviously being a sustainable mode of commute, is reducing the climate impact and making cities more sustainable. And we just, with this initiative, we just don't hope that there is a reduction in the percentage of girls dropping out of the school, but we also hope that this gives these little girls a hope of equal opportunity one day. And as an athlete myself, I'm also hoping that the sports infrastructure investments that the government is doing, especially in my state, also builds like the cycling every day, builds a notion in their head that sports is a part of the lifestyle. And we have already partnered with banks, corporates, and everyone else who is giving us support for these projects. And now I invite all of you to be a part of this revolution. Because sometimes all it takes to change a life is 2 wheels and a little bit. Thank you.